Hi all. So I appreciate I have got very big boots to fill. I can't promise snazzy animations. I'm sorry, but please bear with me. So a little bit about me. I've been working in the world of words for 15 years. When I am not doing UX content things, I have a background in psycholinguistics and social linguistics. So how language shapes how people feel, what they think and what they do, and how language shapes the world around us. As you kindly mentioned, I've also written a few books, and when I'm not doing any of that, you will find me clutching my crystals, listening to Motown, and shuffling tarot cards in my pajamas. So I was a bit nervous about coming to a developer-led conference, so I did what any respectable professional would do, and I asked ChatGPT how I should introduce myself. And it told me that I should say to all of you, dear designers and developers, prepare to embark on a transformative expedition where the symphony of words harmonizes with the canvas of design. Let us explore how the right word placed with intention can illuminate the path to innovation, cultivate deeper connections, and ignite the imagination of those who witness the remarkable fusion of design. So yeah, a lot to live up to, it would seem. So as a content person standing here, you are probably expecting me to talk a lot about this. Not eating grandmas, but commas and punctuation and all of that jazz. Or perhaps you're expecting me to talk about this guy and how he's going to take all of our jobs. Disclaimer, I have been working with AI for 5 years, so I know a bit about it, but that is not the focus of this talk. Or maybe you just think kind of what we do is all about just tone and voice and making it sound a little bit better. But the reality is that these are all just parts of the things that we do as UX writers and content people. So I wanted to focus a bit more on the depth and breadth of our work and the role it plays in being a lot more than just a palatable replacement for Lorem Ipsum. So we'll do that in 3 parts. We will look at why language matters for UX. We'll look at how to work with UX writers in your team. And I completely appreciate that some of you might be like, what the fuck's that? I don't know what UX writer is. So we'll talk about what to do if you don't have any UX writers too. So, and please do not worry, do not be alarmed if you are stood there wondering this. I know we have probably got some different camps in this room, and we may have people that have no idea what UX writing is all about. And I hope we've got some people that are open and excited about the thought of the role that language plays in user experience. And then maybe we've got some people that fancy themselves as a bit of a Shakespeare or Dickens themselves. Great. And then maybe somewhere out there, some of my crew, we might have some UX writers and content design people lurking. Come and see me after if so. And it's kind of interesting because I've worked in the space for some time and I've seen the role of UX writing and content strategists grow and grow and grow. Yet often when we think about the concept of design, we talk about things like this. But in reality, without language and good, clear content, user experiences land a whole lot like this. Or this really helpful survey platform. Or this undescribed little dating app. So what we will touch upon is how the role that we do is a lot more than just putting words on a page or a screen. Words are a key part of design and development, and they are key to helping make people make sense of their experiences. And the work that we do as UX writing people is really about the intentional design of language. So we'll go into lots of reasons why to care about language. But one of the fundamental principles is that when people are visiting a website or an app, they're not reading it like they are a novel or a bit of marketing, a billboard. They're either scanning or skimming largely, so they are scanning with a very specific purpose or task in mind, say to buy a conference ticket, or they are skimming just to get a gist of what is going on. So both of which are really key to how we design experiences. So what I'm going to talk about is how we can think about language as a system for meaning, for feeling, and for user experience. And none of this is kind of new age UX writing speak. The notion of psycholinguistics and social linguistics have been studied for the best part of a decade. But what's interesting is when we often think about what UX writers do, we point to this little bit in the middle. So we're just focused on the words. And yeah, sure, that is a little bit of what we do. We do look at the grammar, the spelling, the word choice, the literal makeup and decisions around those words. We localize them, we scrutinize them. But there's a whole lot more to it. And when you go beyond just those words and start to think about their syntax, we're really looking at how they come together in their order. So if you take this headline as an example, we've got two headlines that are on very, very similar hot topics. And this one from Yahoo, you'll see that they're using passive voice and they're putting real emphasis on the subject instead of the actor. You don't know who did the thing, ChatGPT, until far, far down the line. Very similar one that flips the syntax completely. It puts ChatGPT at the forefront and it uses strong adjectives like underpaid and exploited, which can all land and arouse a really different feeling with people. Two headlines, different syntax, very different meaning. And the same goes for our user experience all the time. So here, very similar words, similar topic, different structure. And you can see how it really impacts how we feel and how a message lands with us. Just like the words that we pick are a choice, the way we structure them are too. And another one that comes up a lot in the world of payments, many, many different ways you can say a similar thing. You can see in the middle, they're really owning it. They're using right now, which gives a bit more of a temporary feel to it. And then you've got the classic old school at the bottom, which really isn't telling you a whole lot. And one that I get, let's be honest, a little bit of anxiety when it pops up. Some of us may be familiar with it, but you can see how just simple changes can make a big difference. And then here is where it really gets juicy. So meaning really matters. And one of the reasons that's the case is meaning starts with comprehension. So when we're designing user experiences, we're not just putting things out there for a laugh. It's fundamental that people understand them. And our comprehension is largely based on two things. One, the age in which we learn words or phrases, and two, how often we use them. So, still a little bit traumatic for me, so bear with me. But if you take this example, which many of us Brits will remember in the referendum, we were simply asked, do we want to leave the EU or do we want to remain in the EU? And if we look at that model, leave is a word that we learned a lot earlier and we use a lot. Remain in the UK, not so much. It's a stative verb, not a dynamic one, and one that we likely learnt a lot later. So here you can see if you were going to have parallel phraseology, we compare it with a word that we typically use a lot more and one that we learnt a lot earlier. And you can see how the simple reframes can have a big difference. And of course, this goes for our UX too, right? I'm obsessed with error messages. I don't know why everyone hates them. I don't know why they get such a bad rep. They are often at those really frictious points in people's user experience where it's really difficult, something's gone wrong, it can be a make or break moment. Yet all too often, we see examples like the before, where it's just authentication error, it doesn't tell you much at all. But then you can see in the after, actually it's just one way of getting in that's an issue, and it gives people a route forward, which could be a significant difference in the experience they have. And we see this a lot with our UX writing choices. There's a whole lot of comprehension, cultural nuance, and careful consideration that goes into making sure people get it. If you're ever wondering about the metrics behind it, do an A/B test on buttons, and it will almost always show you how a simple word can make a huge difference. Because technically two words can mean the same thing, but say something very, very different. So then, our final point, pragmatics. So here's where it gets really interesting. So pragmatics is all about the meaning of our word choices in context. So as influenced by our beliefs, our backgrounds, and more. So as content people, some of the things that we're thinking about in all of our decisions are the cultural connotations and meanings of those words, how those words make people feel, potential unintended harm, people's familiarity and mental models with the language too. So if we look at this one, two buttons that might be used very similarly, I see them interchangeably all the time, very different pragmatics. Asking someone if they understand something is very different than asking if they accept it. And this matters when we've got ourselves into a world of these lengthy terms and conditions with scroll and click patterns. You can see how simple language devices can really help to encourage understanding. And another one that we see pop up all too often, sadly, you can see someone's put their name in here and they've been told to enter a valid last name that has more than 3 characters. And you see it, again, error messages, right? It's been left till the last minute. The intent was probably harmless, but you can start to see, especially on a global level, why suggesting a name is only valid if it has 3 characters is problematic and exclusionary. The same goes for many points about language and race and ethnicity. Like I said, language has a deeper meaning, and that meaning isn't always good. Social linguistics is the study of how language shapes how we see the world. So through that lens, you can see why colorist language that denotes light or white as good, safe, and pure, and dark or black as criminal and unethical, can also be harmful in context. The beautiful thing about language is there are always clearer alternatives. So you start to see as well, idioms like sold down the river can be extremely confusing. They don't resonate necessarily outside of the UK. And what's important here is to remember that the intentions that we have with our words don't equate the impact. One word could mean nothing to you or I, but it could be harmful to some of our users. So that pragmatic lens and taking a social cultural view is really important with how things land. Another thing that always fascinates me is often content design is what is not seen for everyone. I've worked on a number of huge accessibility projects, and I'm always surprised because WCAG talks to content so much of the time, yet often when we talk about accessibility, we're focused just on colour contrast or code. All things are important, but we've got to remember those content aspects too. Our hidden labels, you can see here with Spotify, this is another real superpower of content people. One framework which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with that I find really helpful is PAW. So really with this, we're looking to make sure that all of our work is perceivable. And that really means that it can be recognised whether people can see or hear or not. So things we would be looking at here are how might someone who is blind, has low vision, or is colourblind perceive this journey? A bugbear that happens all of the time. Are we overly relying just on visual cues, on ambiguous icons that don't mean anything to so many audiences? And what alternatives are we providing in terms of alt text, etc.? Operable, can people use it? And I'm not just talking about people that have the use of their hands, but how do our controls work, our buttons, our links work, if people don't have hands to use or a mouse? Working in a dating app, swipe. This is really important. So with this one, we'll be thinking about how does the experience work with voiceover? Are we giving people crystal clear instructions? And where on earth are all of our links and buttons going? Is that clear? And my personal favourite, understandable. Not just is it there, can people perceive and use it, but do they actually get it? Because if they don't, they're going to walk away from your product or experience. So designing for comprehension is so key. And things that we're always thinking about here with content is, how can we use simple language? How can we make sure that our internal jargon that we all use isn't creeping into our product and experiences? And how might someone with very low literacy levels, for example, in the UK, the average reading age is 9 to 11. So we need to really be thinking about how people are going to comprehend our experiences. And finally, robust. So experiences need to be robust enough to work across platforms, devices, and browsers. Bumble was a very global company in 100 different markets, so we're not all on our shiny, perfect iPhones, so lots of things that we have to think about there, including how might it be compatible for screen readers, per se. So we've covered syntax, semantics, pragmatics. Hopefully it's helped to break down that we do a little bit more than just polishing lorem ipsum. So how do you work with UX writers or whoever's doing the writing on your team or in your company? And we've all seen the memes, and we are slowly moving past a place where we are just begging for edit access in Figma files. But I get it, because this is how it normally looks, right? This is how we normally get. We've got this lovely, sweet design phase where we do our ideating, we do our sketching, we polish some things up, we get things to a good place. And there's one poor little person here, we often don't know who they are, that comes running in at the end, that has to try and make sense of it all. And why this is an issue, right? Because we all hate that moment at the end where we're like, okay, but we've got it all, and then someone comes in and it's like, but we needed that notification, and this isn't going to work in German, this is far too short, this pattern's not going to work. We all hate this pivot moment right at the end, right? So this is why it's really important to think about content earlier on, to avoid those last-minute surprises. But this is how the setup normally looks. I mean, give or take, I understand it's an example, but you've normally got your PMs or sorts, you've got your designers, you've got your engineers, and then this is a very modest view, this person at the end, let's call them Bob. Bob's probably running between 20 different teams, red in the face and frazzled hair. I know, I've been Bob. So, let me go back. I'm often asked, what does good look like? And my view is a world where we're reducing those last-minute handoff phases, where, if possible, we're working in partnership and bringing the people that need to be round the table, that have a stake in the user experience, together earlier. And you're probably seeing that and being like, oh my gosh, we don't have enough writers. That's fine, don't worry, I've got you. One thing I find really, really important is having a clear beginning, middle, and an end. So making sure at that beginning phase, you're starting to think about the language. This is important because content can make or break the user experience, but it should always help shape it. So that time when you get together at the beginning and you discuss, actually, okay, what languages are we thinking about here? What notifications might we need to tell people? Are they really going to read all those terms and conditions? What could be a better pattern for it? Discussing those things up front can really help everyone and avoid those last-minute surprises. And then the middle phase. Realistically, your writers aren't going to be able to be in everything, but having those check-ins can be super, super helpful. And then finally, we're looking at, are we all happy with the demo? Has a bit of lorem ipsum snuck in? We've all seen it lately, or a little chat GPT prompt stuck into the end. Let's get our language to a good place. And also, if we're localizing in different languages, what's the quality like? How does this work in many, many different formats and languages? Coming together on these phases can be really important and save time later down the line. And if in doubt, ask. When I work with organisations and I ask them, okay, well, who is doing your content? Sometimes I get this blank look till the end. And I get it. But asking that question up front, even if it's someone in marketing or it's one of the PMs, even if you don't have a writer, getting clear on that can really help to avoid mistakes later down the line. And the one thing I would love for you all to take from this is, how can you be a content champion? The biggest success metric for me for UX writing is having more people talk about language when we're not in the room. And imagine a world like this, right? We're in a demo or a stakeholder meeting, we're not going, oh, ignore the lorem ipsum, it's just placeholder. But we're actually handing over and we're talking through our intentional language decisions. And I get it. As I said, some of you might be the person doing the writing. You might not have a writer on your team. I got you too. So firstly, what I would say is stay curious. I am old, and I'm very lucky that now there are many, many books that wonderful people have written about content design and UX writing. Even if you're the only person on your team doing it, there's some really, really helpful resources. The Content Strategy Toolkit is a really good one of just full of tools that you can practically use in your work. And then design systems are your best friend. So if you don't have a content designer on your team, really starting to think about how you can embed content patterns in your design system, not just considering UK English, but considering more broadly. Wise do this really well. So Wise, you can see that they have all of their visual cues and how they visually design their components and patterns, but they mirror that with their language style as well. And for every one, you will find guidance on how you should flex your tone, voice, and content for the patterns. So even if you had a content designer that works with you on a content design system project, that can really, really help with quality. If you're feeling like, well, where do I even start? We've got you. During COVID, when we were all really bored, some of us crowdsourced and put together some readability guidelines, which cover everything from how to create great error messages, to clear language, to designing for imagery, and much more. So that's a really useful resource if you don't have any content people on your team. And then I would just say to think beyond just the words. Now you've got this handy little model. Hopefully you'll be equipped to question things like alt text and meaning and structure and whether that button really makes sense. And of course, if you're feeling really inspired, I know it's the end of the year, I know budgets are tight, but you could always build a business case for a UX writer on your project. And I've got some Jedi mind tricks to help you. So you could say to your boss, you could use a bit of confirmation bias. Just let them know. If Asia's your biggest growth market, use it as an opportunity for a bit of localization and content strategy. Or who doesn't love efficiency, right? Content can be really, really helpful in making efficient time to market cuts. Or you could just slide onto their desk this little tweet from the VP of Product Design at Figma, where he said that their biggest transformation at Figma was the addition of UX writers to the team. So hopefully that's given you some food for thought, but just a few takeaways to leave you with. Language can make or break UX, but it should always, always help shape it. Lorem ipsum could never. And AI, I'm not an AI hater, which I know surprises people. It can help you with the basics. As was being discussed earlier, it can help shape things, but it doesn't mitigate that need for really, really good critical thinking and humans that understand the deep complexity of people. It also lies quite a lot. I test it a lot, and it's a bit of a liar. And thinking about language up front will save you time later down the line. I promise you that. It will save you those awkward pivot moments. And finally, UX writers matter, and they will always make user experiences better. Now go hog or hire some. Thank you.